I want to welcome you to a mighty day. I say that because we're talking about something mighty this morning. Have you ever done anything that made you feel mighty? Sometimes it's physical, sometimes not physical. In staff meetings here at the church, I'm kind of an observer. I'm a listener. I try not to talk a whole lot because, one, I'm a slow processor, so I receive information and then I'll have an opinion on it tomorrow. So if you throw something new at me, if I'm just nodding, it's not because I don't think it's a bad or a good idea. It's because I just don't know. So but every once in a while I'll say something, and if the rest of the group actually likes it, then I'm like, whew, that's my one for the day. See ya, I'm going home, I feel mighty, When I was in high school, I played football, and we had a losing team. There's no dancing around that. We scored one touchdown my entire junior year. That's real. And it was in the first game. And the rest of the other games, we got shut out. My senior year, we started to turn it around, and we actually won a couple games. And I remember it was my homecoming game, and we were so pumped up. We were beating this team, and I was playing defensive end, and I played defensive end on defense and center on offense. And I remember just thinking, hey, we've got a lead here. I really would love, linemen don't get to, I was the center, so I got to touch the ball every play. But linemen don't get to, run with the ball. And because in certain drills, I had kind of proven that I could outrun plenty of people on our team. And so our coach had come up with this play where, as the center, everyone would shift, and that would make me an eligible receiver. And it was a trick play, and I would hike the ball, and the rest of the defense hopefully would follow all of our guys over there, and then I would block my guy, go out, and it would be awesome. So I was hoping that this play would get installed in this homecoming game, and I was, Coach, we've got a 30-point lead. Can we do the play? And it was kind of in a timeout when I had said this, and we were on defense, and he said, you go get me the ball. We'll do the play. So it's on now. So I ran back on the field, and I went to the opposite side defensive end. And I'm a short guy, and he was a really tall guy. He was 6'4", so we were a pair. And I'm 5'9". And so I said to him, I was like, man, Coach said if we get the ball back, we can do the play. And he's like, for real? Yeah. So, man, we had this thing. Football players might know it. We called it a swim move, and where you would just do something with your arms to get past your player. And I was like, man, do the swim move on him, and we'll sandwich the quarterback. Let's get there at the same time and crush him, and maybe the ball will pop out, and we'll recover it. Yeah, and we're much more hyper than this. We're shouting it. Yeah, we're doing all that stuff, and so I just remember I've never felt so much adrenaline lining up, and I said to the guy in front of me, I said to him, I'm sorry. And he said, for what? For what I'm about to do to you. And we were lined up, and they hiked the ball, and it was just the way I had planned. I hit the guy, and I went like this, and I was past him in a second. I was like, oh, this is going to happen. And in that moment when I did that, out of the corner of my eye, I saw that the other defensive end did the same thing, and he was past his guy. I was like, oh. And we started approaching, and the quarterback started to roll to his side. I'm like, oh, I don't like that. And he rolled away from me, and I started running. And I'm like, oh, man, he's going to get the pass off. And he went to throw the ball, and our defensive end did what you do. If you can't get to him and hit him, you put your arms up. So he put his arms up, which, mine aren't very high, but his were really high because he's 6'4" and he had long arms. Put his arms up, and when the quarterback threw the ball, it deflected off of his elbow, and it started coming towards me in slow motion. And I just remember seeing that ball end over end, and I reached out one hand, and I caught it. And I was like, oh! And I ran as fast as I could, and I got to about the 10 and started thinking, this might happen without the play. And I went to turn, and there was no one chasing me. So I was like, oh! And so I ran in, scored the touchdown. And in our league, it was actually a penalty to spike the ball, but they never told that to linemen because when are we ever going to score? So I scored, and I'm like this, ready to spike the ball. And right as I'm about to do that, one of our players got in the view of the ref. So I spiked it, but the refs didn't see it. So I didn't get penalized. But I got to tell you, man, I felt mighty in that moment. I was like, oh, homecoming game. And it was something that, like, you know, obviously I still live to tell about it, right? And what we're going to talk about today, like any story that I could come up with, pales in comparison to what we're going to be reading. We're going to be in 1 Chronicles chapter 11 this morning. And if you're not familiar, I want to get you caught up to just some background of what it is we're going to be reading. It's 1 Chronicles chapter 11. And this is the time in David's life where he was on the run from King Saul. However, earlier while he was on the run, another section of Israel that had kind of divided itself, the little section had anointed David to be their king, even though it wasn't time yet. He had been anointed by Samuel. He knew that from when he was younger, but right now he's on the run from Saul. And he's living in the land of the Philistines. Philistines are bad guys. Israelites are good guys. So that's just, all you need to know about that. But in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, and there's parallel passages to it in 2 Samuel, if you ever want to look those and compare them, some people started joining up with David. People knew who David was because he had been the commander of, a general in the army of Saul, and he had defeated Goliath. That was a big deal, and he started winning all these battles and victories, and people started singing songs about him instead of King Saul. That's why King Saul was after him. He was jealous of the attention. And now with David on the run, that attracted people to David. Certain people that were kind of outcast, certain people that were maybe on the run themselves, started joining up with David. And David started forming his own little army. And says that he had about 400 men with him. And in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, we're going to look at a few of them. Among those 400 men, the Bible identifies 40 of them. It actually ended up growing to about 47. But 40 of them it became to known as being 40 of David's mighty men. And in order to be labeled as one of the mighty men, you had to have accomplished some kind of great feat. And these guys, some of their stories are told, and we can't tell all of them, but some of them had some amazing feats. Within that 40, there were 3. And they called them 3 of the 40. And those 3 stood out. And those 3 were the top mighty men. Those 3 were the ones that everybody else looked to, like, those guys are the stuff. Leave those guys alone. They'll mess you up. They were warriors beyond warriors beyond warriors. They were the deal. And so what we see is we're gonna look at something that these 3 mighty men did, but I need some help with it. We have some we have some guests. We have not guests, but we have some people in the service today that are normally in the back. We have our kids in here. So I'm going to need some kids' help to walk through some of what happened in the Bible. So if you're a kid, I just need all of you to come on up front. We have something for you to do to walk us through this passage. Don't be afraid. Don't be shy. Come on up, you mighty warriors. All right. So you're either going to be a warrior or a warrior today. So here's what we're going to do. Does any of your names start with the letter D? Any D's?
Nope.
No D's. How about a K?
Me.
You're a K? You're a K? Okay, how about we'll go with you. I need you to come stand right over there. I'll tell you what you're going to be doing in a second. And then I need... Yeah, Kellen can go with me. That's okay. Yeah, she's going to go. You'll both be the K. Okay, all right. You guys are both going to represent King David today, okay? And then I need let's see. I need the 3 smallest boys. So let's go 1, 2, 3. You guys, come over here. You guys go stand next to them over there. Yeah. Okay, now you guys have to be tough now. Can you be tough? You're tough? Okay, let's all walk over to this corner over here. Go where the restroom sign is. We're not going to go in the restroom. We're just going to stand next to the sign. You guys are going to be the Philistine warriors, all right? So in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, so you guys are going to help us kind of picture what happened with this story, okay? So I need so you guys are like King David. You guys are going to be our 3 mighty warriors. Think you can handle that? Yeah? Okay. I need you guys to look back there, you 3. There's some props for you guys. Everyone pick a prop, okay? Hopefully that doesn't backfire because it's plastic swords. All right. Tristan, can you reach back there and pull out the little kiddie pool in Houston? It's not filled up. So here's what I want you guys to do. I need you to form a little wall of people in front of that kiddie pool. All right? You're guarding the pool. All right? So 1 Chronicles chapter 11 is where we pick up with this story. What we have David. King David, wave your hand, King David's. Wave your hand. Good job. David and his men, they're on the run and they're hiding out in the cave of Adullam. And what we see in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, we're starting in verse 15. It says 3, wave your hands, 3, wave to us, 3 people, 3 mighty. You guys, 3 of the, I was saying 40, it's 30, I'm sorry. 3 of the 30 chief men went down to the rock to David at the cave of Adullam when the army of the Philistines, that's you guys, wave to everybody, you're the army of the Philistines, they were encamped in the valley of Rephaim. David was then in the stronghold, and the garrison of the Philistines was then at Bethlehem. Verse 17, and David said longingly, "Oh, that someone would give me water to drink from the well of Bethlehem that is by the gate." Then the 3 mighty men broke through the camp of the Philistines and drew water out of the well of Bethlehem that was by the gate and took it and brought it to David. But David would not drink it. He poured it out to the Lord. So here's what happened. I need you to stand up. Why don't you stand up on the stage right here so everyone can see? I need you to give me your best face that says, "I'm so thirsty," right? How would you look if you're like desperate for water? Like that. That's a good look, okay? And these 3 guys, they're your friends. So King David just kind of said to himself, "Oh, I would give anything for the, you know what the best water I've ever had? That water from that well over in Bethlehem." And we do that, right? You guys all have like favorite restaurants and things like that. Like sometimes you get a craving or maybe a certain snack and you just kind of like, "Oh man, I wouldn't give for a Moe's burrito right now." Like that's mine. That's daily, right? So, but everyone has something, and so just you kind of say it. David said it out loud. But he wasn't saying it to anyone in particular. He was saying it to himself, like, oh, I could go for a cup of that water. That's like the best water I've ever had. So the three friends, stand up, three friends, come over here a little bit. The three friends, they say to each other, and these guys have done some amazing feats on themselves. They've already done some crazy things themselves already. They get together and they're like, hey, did you hear that? David is really longing for that water. What if we went and got him some of that water? So, they're acting it out. Good job. Okay. What if we went and got him some of that water? That would be awesome. He doesn't even know. We could just sneak away and we'll get him the water and bring it back. So the three come. So they probably had some kind of a, that's almost dangerous. All right. Yeah. They had probably some kind of water pouch, like a leather pouch, something like that. And so one of them, we'll put it over your shoulder, kind of like that. And you can pretend we only had 2 prop swords in the church. So you pretend you have a sword too, all right? Now, just to be clear, we're not actually going to hit anyone today with the swords. We're going to pretend, okay? So the three of them, they took this journey, and they follow me. They went towards Bethlehem, where the well was, and it says that the army of the Philistines was in a valley, but a garrison was surrounding Bethlehem. So in order for these guys to get this water, they had to, let's keep going towards, there's like an army in front of you. They had to fight their way through the Philistine army. So maybe you guys are like the fullbacks and you're the tailback, all right? So they had to pave a way, just pretend you're battling, but let them through, okay? So just keep walking to that kiddie pool. Keep walking to the kiddie pool. Good job faking deaths. Oh, wow. And in the Philistine army, they were going down. So they made it to the pool. Now you, Jackson, and then one of them had to take that water. The pool didn't actually move, though. The pool stays there. It was a fixed location. So take that off, Jackson. Jackson, take it off now. And pretend you're filling that up with water. So one of them, the other two maybe are still fighting the other guys off. The other guys, I'm going to get some water now. Good job, you're filled up. And now they had to fight their way back through the army again. They came back to life. Yeah, they made it through. They made it through. The Philistine army, they went down. Yeah, good job. There's 2. Where's my third mighty warrior? Almost had his sword taken away. Okay, come on, third mighty warrior. Come on. Yeah, he's stabbing. Yeah, what'd you learn at church today? All right. So then they come back and they had to travel, and we're going to explain how far they traveled in just a second. And they come back and they bring it to David. And they say, David, we heard you say you really liked this water back in Bethlehem, so guess what we did? We snuck away and we got this water. And they give it to David. Give it to David now. They give it to David. And let's see what happens in verse 18. It says, so they drew the water of the well in Bethlehem that was by the gate and took it and brought it to David, but David would not drink it. Instead, he poured it out to the Lord. So pretend you dump it. You don't have to, that's fine too. Yeah. How does that make you guys feel? Right? Let's give it up for our kids. Give them a hand. You guys can all go find your seats again. You guys can go find your seats. We'll just leave those on the ground there. Good job. You want? Well, maybe we'll talk later, okay? Here you go, Kellen. Good job. Good job, King Kellen. All right. It's the best sword ever? It is. Just wait till you put batteries in it. It lights up. So this says that David poured out this water that his men fought through twice to get this water for him, and said, far be it from me before my God that I should do this. Shall I drink the lifeblood of these men? For at the risk of their lives, they brought it. Therefore, he would not drink it. These things did the three mighty men. Some observations about this passage. We see that I'm going to show you a map in just here in a second. We see that they're at the cave of Adullam. We covered that. The Philistine army was near Jerusalem, which is up north of Bethlehem, but a garrison was stationed at Bethlehem. So I don't know how clear you can see this map, but where that big red dot is, that represents the valley of Rephaim. That's where the whole Philistine army was. But if you look down and a little to the right is Jerusalem. Oh, that's fun. Is Jerusalem. And then if you look further down south is Bethlehem. So the majority of the army is in this valley of Rephaim, but they sent a garrison down to Bethlehem. And typically when you sent a garrison, and they were there to kind of guard Bethlehem. They were there to keep anyone from going back into Bethlehem. They were trying to keep it for themselves. So they were surrounding Bethlehem. And most studies show there's a city of Adullam, so many people believe that the cave of Adullam is right around the city of Adullam, which you see the distance there is about 13 miles. So these men that heard this longing of David, they know how far it is. There might be a little bit of a mountainous thing in there, I'm not quite sure. They knew the distance. These are the top military guys. They knew where the Philistines were. They knew who the enemy was. They knew the risk. So just so we're clear of where they were at. And who were these guys? Who was with David? Who were the three men? We see that first, most of that army, most of the people that were coming along with him, they were distressed. People that couldn't pay their bills. We see from 1 Samuel chapter 22, verses 1 and 2 there, it says, David departed from there and escaped to the cave of Adullam, and when his brothers and all his father's house heard it, they went down there to him. And everyone who was in distress, and everyone who was in debt, and everyone who was bitter in soul gathered to him, and he became commander over them. And there were with him about 400 men. So David escapes to this cave. He's on the run. And these are the types of, we see that David and his family joined him first, but then some guys they were like, you know what, he's on the run like I am. The king is after him, and maybe the king was after these guys for various reasons. It says some were in distress. They were stressed in life for various reasons. We don't know why. It doesn't get into that. Some were in debt. And what it means back then, if you were in debt to the point to where you couldn't pay your bills, they couldn't pay that debt. So maybe they were being chased for that. And some were bitter in soul, or discontent is another word for that. Like, I'm just tired of this life. You know what? David has something going on. I want to join up with that guy. And it says that 400 joined his crew. I'm wondering how David did the screening process. You know, like, what are you upset about? Okay, you're good. You know, like, how did that work when I heard you were on the run from King Saul. I am. Do you want to help me? Yes, you're in. You know, this was these people joining up with him. And then the three that joined him, the first one, his name was, and I didn't list their names, but of those 33 are identified as the elite of the elite, the best of the best. The first one, his name is Joshabim. If you read the 2 Samuel passage, they spell it slightly different, but it's the same guy. But his exploits are told in 1 Chronicles chapter 11, in the previous verses of what we read, in verse 11 of First Chronicles, it says that this guy, Joshabim, it says, this is an account of David's mighty men. Joshabim, a Hakmonite, was the chief of the three. He wielded his spear against 300 whom he killed at one time. So here's the deal with this guy. It's either 300 or 800. Because if you compare this passage with the 2 Samuel passage, they list it as 800. Many people believe this could be just an error when they were prescribing, when they were rewriting it, however you want to say it, and just a clerical error that a 3 looks really close to an 8, and they could have just, but it's either 300. Either way, dude by himself with a spear, either 300 or 800. Some people believe it could have been 2 separate instances as well. So there's that possibility as well. We're not going to get into all that. Just, you need to know he was a bad man. He with a spear, he killed at least 300. The next guy was Eleazar. Eleazar's story we find in 2 Samuel 23, verses 9 and 10, and it says, next to him among the 3 mighty men was Eleazar, the son of Dodo, which is awesome, son of Ahohai. He was with David when they defied the Philistines who were gathered there for battle, and the men of Israel withdrew. He rose and struck down the Philistines until his hand was weary and his hand clung to the sword. And the Lord brought about a great victory that day, and the men returned after him only to strip the slain. So we have this guy Eleazar, son of Dodo, which is, it says that they were going to, I'm grabbing the Masters of the Universe sword. They're in battle, and he's with David, and it says the rest of the Israelite army took off. We're not quite sure if David took off too. I can't imagine that David did. It says that he was with David, so maybe it was him and David. But it says that at least the 2 of them stood their ground against this entire Philistine army. When the rest of the Israel army took off, the 2 of them were like, let's go. And it says that he fought so long holding that sword that his hand, and it says that his hand clung to his sword. So most people believe what that means is his hand cramped up so much that he couldn't do that anymore. That his hand was just basically stuck there, which may have been a good thing for him. He ain't dropping it, So, but he fought. That means the battle went on so long and so hard and so fierce. And these 2, it says that they won. And the only people that came back was to take the armor and the swords and stuff from the people that were dead. That's one bad dude. So there's 2. That's one of the other 3. And then the third, his name is Shama. And Shama is found also in 2 Samuel 23 and verse 11 to 12. And it says, next to him was Shama, the son of Agi, the Hararite. The Philistines gathered together at Lehi, where there was a plot of ground full of lentils. And the men fled from the Philistines, but he took his stand in the midst of the plot and defended it, and struck down the Philistines, and the Lord worked a great victory. So this is a similar instance as the other guy. The rest of his army fled, and he just made a decision. Nope. And he turned around and he faced the entire army by himself in a field of lentils. Why do we need to know that it's lentils? I don't know, just that it was a field of lentils. And won. Normally when we hear stories of this guy had great bravery. He went and fought against this entire army by himself, and he took out a bunch, and eventually he died. No, he didn't die. He beat all of them until the rest of them realized this guy, we're not going to beat him. So then the rest of them probably took off. These are the 3 guys. I'd say those are pretty good things to earn that they were mighty. And they were the 3 top mighty men We also see, the men, they overhear David longingly say to himself that he would love to have this drink of water that comes from that well. What do we know about water? Some things that we know about water in the scriptures. Water refreshes. Water cleanses. Water represents life. And this water, that water in that kiddie pool over there, that represented the best David had ever tasted. Bethlehem, known later as the city of David, eventually, what do we know about Bethlehem? Eventually, it was the birthplace of Jesus. It's also the main city where David's family was known, going back as far as Boaz and Ruth. They had to travel somewhere around 13 miles to get to Bethlehem, then fight through the garrison of the Philistine army to get to Bethlehem. They had to fill up the water pouch, fight back through that Philistine garrison, and travel back to the cave. And here's what we see, David's response. David pours it out. And I believe David was so moved by this act of love shown toward him that he didn't even need the water. He was filled up without even taking a drink. David's over here. He's hiding out. He's in a cave. He's with some men that he already knows are pretty tough, so he's feeling good about that. David himself is a tough warrior. He's feeling good about that, and he longingly says something about water. And I think he's longing to be in Bethlehem. I think he's longing to be back among his people. These three men, among the men that came to David, who they themselves were on the run, they themselves were distressed, they themselves were in debt. They love David. So when they hear, man, he'd like something, he didn't ask us to get it for him, but I would love to get it for him. I wonder if there was even any hesitation on these guys' part. Did one of them have the idea and the other two try and talk him out of it? Did two of them have it? Or did one throw it out there and the other two just, oh yeah, that'd be awesome. I almost get the sense that as they're journeying this 13 miles, as they're, we don't know if they had horses or if they walked or what, and they're so tough, maybe they ran. They ran a marathon that day. I don't know. But on that journey, I imagine their spirits, their hearts were a little giddy. And I only say that because, try and put yourself in their shoes, not necessarily the fighting and stuff part, but maybe when you have opportunity to do something for someone else and it's like a secret, you just kind of like, oh, they don't know. It's going to be great. You get excited. I'll never forget one of my best friends when I was in Bible college. She came up to me and said, hey, and a few of us other friends together, and we had a mutual friend that they'd been married like a month, and the husband lost his job. And so we got together, and my friend said, hey, let's do that thing where you go to the store and buy like groceries and leave it on their door and they won't know who did it. So we're like, yeah, we've always heard about that kind of thing, but never got to be the ones doing it. And so, just even going to the grocery store, you have 4 college students, we don't have kitchens, we have dorm rooms with fridges, and we're going through and we're like, oh, we like Cocoa Puffs, we're just getting stuff we would like, but we got some other stuff we knew they cooked and all that, so we were relying on the ladies in our group, and so, but it was like we're just laughing and giggling the whole time while we're in the store, like, oh yeah, this is gonna be so good, we're just excited because you get to do something for someone that didn't ask you to do it, and so then we took the groceries and it was like, who's gonna put it on the doorstep? You go. I'll go. And so you put it on the doorstep and you have guys in the car ready to take off and you knock on the door and then you take off running and like the car spins out as you pull away and it was fun. And these guys, one of them himself probably could have done this, but the three of them do it together. The three best warriors. This garrison didn't stand a chance because they had a great motivation of love to do this thing. And David recognized that act of love. When he received that water, I imagine the three, when he poured it out, oh, seriously? Do you realize what we just... David, that really is water from that well you wanted. Oh, don't pour it out. But David's heart was full. He said, I thought I wanted that water, but this filled me up beyond words. This act of love, instead of drinking it, he offered it up to the Lord as an offering and thanks. He poured it out as an offering. God, I take what these men did and I give it to you. I'm so thankful. Why would these men do this? I think we have two motivations for them. One is love. These men valued their king and wanted to do for him something so risky for something so small as a drink. It was worth it to them. They valued their king. They loved their king. Second motivation was gratitude. These men had come from being distressed, in debt, discontent in life, and David gave them a place. David gave them a mission. David gave them a purpose. David was filled up without taking a drink because his thirst was a spiritual one. He needed his heart filled up so that when he saw the physical water, he said, I don't even need it now. He could have offered it back to them, but, hindsight's 20/20. A similar instance happened with Jesus in John chapter 4, verses 5 through 15. Jesus came to a town of Samaria called Sychar, near the field that Jacob had given to his son Joseph. Jacob's well was there. So Jesus, wearied as he was from his journey, was sitting beside the well. And it was about the 6th hour. Just so you know, the 6th hour was about noon. And we see that Jesus was weary. He was tired. A woman from Samaria came to draw water, and Jesus said to her, give me a drink. For his disciples had gone away into the city to buy food. Why did they go to buy food? Jesus was weary. He was hungry. The Samaritan woman said to him, how is it that you, a Jew, ask for a drink from me, a woman of Samaria? For Jews had no dealings with Samaritans. And Jesus answered her, if you knew the gift of God and who it is that is saying to you, give me a drink, you would have asked him, and he would have given you living water. The woman said to him, sir, you have nothing to draw water with, and the well is deep. Where do you get this living water? Are you greater than our father Jacob? He gave us this well and drank from it himself, and did as did his sons and his livestock. And Jesus said to her, everyone who drinks of this water will be thirsty again. But whoever drinks of the water that I will give him will never be thirsty again. The water that I will give him will become in him a spring of water, welling up to eternal life. The woman said to him, sir, give me this water so that I will not be thirsty or have to come here to draw water. Jesus offered living water, something that would fill you up beyond physical water, and it came from him to fill our hearts. Jesus started getting into her personal life a little bit after this, and then she believed that he was the Messiah. So she ran into town to tell everybody she knew about the Messiah. And as she ran in, the disciples came back with the food, and we pick up with them in verse 31. It says, meanwhile, the disciples were urging him, saying, Rabbi, eat. Why? Because he was weary, because he was tired, because he was hungry, and he sent them into town to go buy food. So why aren't you eating? Here's the food. And he said to them, I have food to eat that you do not know about. So the disciples said to one another, has anyone brought him something to eat? Did you see him eat? Jesus said to them, my food is to do the will of him who sent me and to accomplish his work. Do you not say there are yet 4 months, then comes the harvest? Look, I tell you, lift up your eyes and see that the fields are white for harvest. Jesus hadn't eaten anything. He was weary. We knew that he was tired to begin with. We don't even know if the woman actually drew any water for him to drink, that he asked for some water. And yet, because he was able to minister to this woman and speak with her and fill up her heart, his heart was filled up. So that when they came back with actual food, he said, I'm good. That fills me up beyond measure to do the work of the Lord. These mighty men, they were doing something for their king, and we have the ultimate, we have the King of Kings that we serve. But even just doing that filled up that king. To do his work. It's about serving him and loving others, but in the process, you yourself are filled. When you're able to serve God, when you say, God, I love you. I'm so grateful to you for what you've done in my life. How can I ever express that love back to you? How can I ever show my gratitude to you? Jesus then looks at us and he says, I'm thankful for your love. If you want to show that love for me, express it now to others. Serve others. In the same manner that you love me, now express it to someone else. And in the process of you expressing it to someone else, you're going to fill them up, but you're going to be filled up. Some quick things as we end today. Number one, we regularly come up empty, physically and spiritually. We don't have an endless supply that always is just steady, always filled up. Physically we're drained, spiritually we're drained, emotionally you're drained. You come into a situation and you're already empty. Jesus was wearied. He came into this situation physically empty. That's a real thing. That's a regular, as I said that, heads around the room are like, maybe you're there today. Maybe you're there this morning. You're empty right this minute. Number two, physical food and water lasts a while, but we will have to refuel in just a few hours. Jesus said to the woman, I can give you some water from this well, but you're going to have to come and refill again. You're going to have to drink again to fill up physically. That's how our bodies are designed. One meal doesn't last you a month. It doesn't work that way. We have to constantly refuel. Number three, the love of Christ and doing the will of God fills us up beyond any food and drink. I got to tell you, I came in this morning. I was doing lots of things, rushing around, getting different things ready. We have young adults class before we have the service here at 9 o'clock, and so we were getting ready for that. And I realized in the middle of teaching that class, I haven't eaten anything today. Can I tell you, I'm not hungry at all right now. And that's every week for me. Whether I'm teaching or preaching or whether I'm standing at the doors, there's been times my job on a Sunday is to greet someone. Man, it fills me up. There's been times where I've been back in the nursery holding babies. Yeah. What? Yes. And that fills me up. I get encouraged. We're serving others, but you get encouraged and you get filled up when you serve others. Now, 10 minutes after this service, I'm going to be hungry. But the love of Christ and doing his will fills us up beyond any of that. Number four, Loving God by serving others fills up the one you are serving, but it fills you up as well. You want to be like Christ? You want to be like Jesus? You model what he did. What did he do on this earth? He served others. I've said it before, but one of our sayings at the camp that we go to is you're never more like Jesus than when you're serving others. That's what he did. He, the King of Kings and the Lord of Lords, washed feet. Number 5, something insignificant can be turned into something mighty. It's getting a drink of water. But you know who it was mighty to? David. And we still read about it. God prompts on our hearts to serve others around us all the time. Sometimes we listen to that, and sometimes we ignore it. And sometimes we might think it's such a small thing, someone else will take care of it. But God was prompting you to take care of it. And it may seem small and it may seem insignificant, but it won't be small and it won't be insignificant to the one you're serving. It'll be mighty. Number 6, life with Jesus. Jesus offers that living water, that eternal life. And that doesn't start after you die. That starts when you enter into that relationship with him. It starts with now. And it lasts forever. He said, I'll give you a drink that will last you forever. That drink is him. He offered himself to you on the cross. And 3 days later rose again. And he says, I want to have a relationship with you. You've been trying to do life on your own. How's that been working out for you? You've been walking this path on your own, and it's left you distressed. It's left you in debt. It's left you discontent in life. Jesus is saying, you need to follow me. You need to repent of your sin. You need to turn your back on that way of life and start following me. I did this for you. I offered myself up for you. And when you enter that relationship with Jesus, it's not something you wait on until after you die. It begins the moment you put your faith and trust in him. The Bible calls it being born again into God's family. At that moment, you are adopted into God's family. You're born into his family. And that relationship starts now on this earth and continues through eternity. It doesn't start after you die. It starts now. Are you taking part of this relationship that Jesus has offered to you? He's offering you that drink of living water, of eternal water. Have you taken part of it? Let's pray.